Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Jim and Sam Town Square. I'm Scott King. Jim and Sam fans know me from the Forbes articles, and I'm joined, as always, by multi-Emmy Award-winning TV producer Chris Cangilla. In this episode, recapping week 4 of January 2024, and it was a great week. 2 guests, lots of great talk. Chris, how are you doing? How did you enjoy this week?
It was a great week. As I'm trying to make my notes and collate everything, there's just so much. I was worried that we're going to run out of time, but I think we're going to be good. And of course, we're wearing special shirts that we'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, it was a great week.
It was one where we're making and going through the notes, and there's almost too much. And we always trim the fat, and there was very little fat this week. I'll say that.
Jimmy might disagree with you, but yeah, there was very little fat.
First to kick things off, and I think this might have been a little bit of Taylor Swift. It was a little bit part of the stalker talk we're going to get into, but we're also talking about, Sam's a big football guy now on the show, and they were discussing kind of how some of the country has Taylor Swift fatigue, and now I think someone on the show does, and I'm pretty surprised because they were such a diehard before.
Yeah, I think it's just gotten to Troy. They asked him, Troy, you still? And he's like, nah. You got a little burnout and yeah, a little fatigue. I just think it's too, I think he was like, it's just too much. It's just too much.
Yeah.
And he said he went in hard. This was that summer, right? This was past summer that when he really went in hard. And he's just a little over it. And probably from the overexposure, I think, is what he's kind of estimating. And he took a beating about, still being a fan and being outside of our house on Cornelia Street there. Former house, I should say. So yeah, he's Troy got a lot of beatings lately.
Yes, he has. And not only do we enjoy Andrew Dice Clay's videos, we watch him on Instagram, and the guys always talk about him based off of Instagram, but I guess they're on TikTok too, because Dice's pranks made the New York Times. Do you want to? Are you here to take the picture? With the face, with the celebrity?
Mr. and Mrs. Beef. I'm here to see Mr. and Mrs. Beef. Eleanor, I'm looking for Eleanor. He just has, it's just nuts. And it's so good. And it makes me realize why Jim and Dice clicked, because it's that weird sense of humor. And Jimmy thinks it's hilarious. And I think most of us think those little bits are just great because he's doing it for himself.
Yes. Yes, and that's what Jim said. Jim said that when he was touring with Dice, like, that is Dice. These videos are Dice because he loves to just mess with people. It brings him joy.
Yeah, it's great because, Dice was a big factor of this week, but they're also talking about where I guess it was early on Tuesday, they had this data breach, and it was kind of worrisome, about Twitter and everything. And of course, who does that worry the most? Our friend Jimmy, of course. And, they're talking about how you can't always trust the reporting sites, that this is down or this is just because I think he got an email where you're supposed to click on this to reinstate everything. You're fine. He just doesn't trust anything. And they were going over the news of that. And Sam came across something in Forbes magazine, and he said, you can always trust Forbes. And everybody in the whole studio just agreed that, yes, you can always trust Forbes. Except Jimmy said that there's somebody there that is sending him D pictures.
Do we know who that guy is? I know who he might have been hinting at, and I'm not going to confirm nor deny said D pics, but I do appreciate that everyone in the studio trusts a certain Forbes journalist, and people who know the show, who follow this show, I think probably love that hidden shout out, and I will take it all day, every day. It was wonderful.
Oh, it's great. They love you from the articles that you've written, and just for Jimmy to do that behind the scenes for us few that get the joke, I loved it. So yeah, please stop doing that to our friend Jimmy.
Travis had a new sound, and I want to ask you, because I don't think there's a visual with the bombing sound that Travis created that they kept testing out the day he created it, which was amazing. Is that a mic or something moving on a table?
It sure sounds like something like I'm moving my mic here. Yeah. It's like, yeah. And it just sounds like something like that would be in the sound that it's making, but I think he's moving a computer or he's moving, I don't know, but it is so good. And just the brilliance of the show. It happened on accident. The sound was made. Travis goes, "I'm sorry, guys." And he goes, "Blake, do that again." And they did it. And they're like, "Ah, that's a great bombing sound." So they would make up bombing jokes and then wait for Travis to do the sound.
That's
So
awesome.
creative, so funny. And it's just like, it's the ringing, the bell ringing and that Jimmy used to do with the old school bell that used to do it when jokes were bad or whatever he would ring in the studio.
Yeah.
And it was just a fun time when they would always make fun of themselves. And Jim used to have the "what do you got?" All these exclamations that just really annoy people. So we'll
So
go
I
with it.
took, as I always do, I took a very tinfoil hat deep dive with the sound. I think the
Mm,
sound is, and the fun they had with it is completely symbolic of jovial Travis being back. I think all week Travis interacted with Jim and laughed. And I think you could probably say that going back a couple weeks on it to be fair, but I just felt like Travis has been in such a good mood lately. We dissected terms of service. It's in the past, but it's water under the bridge at this point.
I
Everyone gets along so well now, I think.
I thoroughly agree with you. It seems like the good old days are back, and it was fun to have them all interacting again. And yeah, there's a little bit more to that terms of service coming up a little later that I'll share with you. Stay
Okay.
tuned.
All right. And speaking of staying tuned, I mean, first we got the news. It was interesting news. Netflix, and want to hear wanted to hear Sam's take on it this week, which we did. But Netflix paying 5 billion, not for
That's
all
just
WWE, just for Raw Monday night, right? I haven't watched Wrestling Raw. Just Monday Night Raw that we know Sammy loves, and so we got that news. But wait, after Thursday's show, we talk about how when something big happens in the news that you can't wait, especially when you know that Jim and Sam have like an amazing take on it. What can they have a better take on than all of the allegations that just came out against Vince McMahon? Oh my God. Um, I mean, these are allegations reported
right.
by Wall Street Journal and other very reputable news outlets in a lawsuit from a WWE employee. Coming from there, um, Opie and Anthony had a duty hat, and it sounds like there may have been a Vince duty hat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it sounds
yeah,
crazy.
it sounds really crazy. And we both want them to break it down, but Sam's not going to be able to say anything because he works for the organization.
He
And I
does,
really,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. You finish it. Finish your thought.
No, I really don't think he's going to be able to do that because he doesn't want to blow up his own spot. And Jim will respect that too. So as much as we want to hear them joke about it and do all that, I think it's going to be talked about, but I think it's going to kind of be glanced over.
I think Jim's remarks will be like, as we expect, like, oh my God, he's amazing. Or like, he's gonna love these allegations. Sam, I will say, Vince's other lawsuit, yes, you're 100% right. Company man didn't say too much, but he still had some insight and still had maybe a little bit of emotion, or he maybe a little bit
He
of a
can
pulling back the
deflect. He
curtain
can
a little bit.
deflect it in a way that we can laugh at it for
Yeah, it
sure,
was. I
right?
still appreciate his take on it. Moving on here though, and perhaps the reason we did not plan to wear the same amazing t-shirts. We got
We had to this week, didn't we?
we had to from Triumph Printing, right? Makes these excellent shirts. But my
And
God,
the guy at Triumph re-released these shirts for sale this week.
oh,
Our
so
buddy
cool.
Miguel forwarded that on, and I saw that,
Yeah,
and I follow Triumph guy too, and yeah, they're back on sale. They're out there for you to purchase. So the Edna Faust, say
you got
it,
to see the whole
Scott.
shirt.
Cold coffee,
Dude, my
cold
kids know about it.
coffee.
My kids know about Edna Faust. I put the shirt on for the podcast tonight, and when my daughter, right before she goes to bed, she looked at it, she goes, "Cold coffee."
Yeah, it's the
She's
best.
a
And
legend.
gosh, you
Legend.
I thought they would just go over it for a little bit, but they spent some good time. Tell us about all the things that they kind of
Oh
discovered, man.
God. I was trying to revisit this in my brain before our show, and we were talking. It's just that they go over it, and we're like, oh yeah, this will be funny. They've done this 100 times, and every time they go over something, especially this again, just new angles, diving into stuff, joke after joke, just amazing what these guys can do with a radio show. Jim and Sam. That's why we do a show on them. But I think they dove a little deeper into the guy with his meeting his lawyer, which is a great
Yeah.
story.
I think they tried to find if any of these guys still are around
Tried to find
and they
every
were on Facebook.
yeah.
Yeah, they couldn't find Edna though, could they?
No,
I
and
don't think they had luck with Edna.
Travis said, and I honestly am guilty of trying to look up Edna myself. Travis had as a potential guest for our show. Travis said
There
that
you go.
fans send him like obituaries of it. There's a lot of Edna Faust out there.
Oh, that's
I'm
right. So
surprised, but I
it's a
think the other
common
one,
name, I guess, from that area. But yeah, they went through it all and looked up all the guys and then the inside and things that you don't notice is like, why is Edna's kind of squinting like in the sun? So that's why she kind of makes that sound and that noise because she's looking in the sun. It was great stuff.
what's the place that I don't like those donuts. I'll have to make myself go. It's to Turkey Hill. Was it Turkey Hill's donuts? I don't
That's
like
yeah,
the
sure sounds
donuts.
like it. Yeah, the person that is not going to make the
Yeah.
trip
Comment
to the
if I'm
new
wrong. I think
Dunkin'.
it's Turkey Hill, everybody.
Yeah, let us know.
Moving along here. The return of the very polarizing Ian Fidance. And I think I think it was a I there wasn't one thing where I'm like, Ian, or oh God, it was a pretty good appearance, I thought. I thought Ian was pretty good this week.
Yeah, it was a good appearance. Maybe that's because he was super, super late and only on for the
Oh,
last maybe half
you're
an hour,
right.
45 minutes. But he was super late and he
Right.
was great. He's a little tuckered out, so he wasn't over the top, and that helps as well. But yeah, I think he won us over a little bit this week and was like the Ian that we liked when he first came on. He had a great story, and I'll let you kind of share it and I'll comment on it. And he was good. I gotta admit, he was good.
Yeah, I guess he did a weekend somewhere where him and Ian were, I think, flipping who would headline, I want to say.
Yeah, John Lovitz. Is
John Lovitz. Yeah, I'm
that what you're
sorry.
talking
John
about?
Lovitz, the
Yeah,
story.
yeah,
Yeah.
John Lovitz. So yeah, I guess Ian, yeah, they're flipping, and then John Lovitz actually was opening up for Ian, and John Lovitz has a piano as part of his set. And after his set, they wanted to mark where the piano was going to be, and Ian's supposed to follow. So Ian has to wait, and he's getting extremely frustrated. And it's just, I can understand that frustration. And oh God, did Jim have a good line on that? They're talking, he was talking about how furious he was with John Lovitz as he was following on the show, and he was just so mad and just wanted to tear him up. And Ian said, but then John stayed and watched my set, and Jim said, so you got him back, meaning he's so bad at comedy that he punished John Lovitz by making him watch Ian's set, which was kind of funny. But yeah, they had some trouble, and then Ian unfortunately had some other people get in trouble. You want to share that one?
Yeah, and I think I could have been wrong. I don't know if they're flipping headliners or just like an early show and a late show. It
Something
might
like that. Who
likely.
knows?
Just for a little detail.
Yeah.
Ian got people arrested for doing some graffiti advertising for him. Um,
Yeah, I
and he
guess
has people
they have on his open, yeah, on his open of his show that he has an RV that has been tagged with, being Ian with Jordan. And he asked the guys that did it, like, hey, can you go around the city and do some more of that? That'd be cool. And they're like, yeah, man, we'd love to do that. And then he didn't hear from them for a while. And then the guy texted him, yeah, sorry, man, I got arrested for that, so I'm heading out of town or something like that. So it's just
I'm
like
heading out of town.
crazy.
Only Ian would
Yeah.
get people arrested for advertising for him.
Oh,
This
geez.
kind of comedy talk, stand-up talk led to Jim revealed the very plausible and possible name of his new special. Do you remember what that was?
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. Sea of Marmalade. What? Is that starring, Ed the Fireman, Master of Fish, or whatever that guy's name was, his Halloween character?
Right, the fireman master.
Yeah, whatever. But yeah, I mean, it was Sea of Marmalade, and I don't know where Jim came up with that, but it was really funny. But then I started thinking about maybe where he came up with it, and I'm gonna have to tell this story delicately, but they're going back and playing guys that were in prison, talking about things that happen in prison. And the guy was telling about a certain act that requires maybe some jelly or some
Oh,
jam.
oh man,
So I'm just wondering if Jim had that on the mind when he came up with Sea of Marmalade. I don't know.
It might have. It might have had an impact on him to possibly name his comedy special after that. And speaking of Jimmy's thoughts and everything, Jimmy, there is just nothing like Little Jimmy for my money. And this is one of the reasons it was such a good week. We got more Little Jimmy stories. We revisited them. Um, Maybe I heard this one the one time. He went to one of those Rocky horror showings, that are a lot of fun when the movie comes out and people have food. I guess they throw food and stuff. I've never seen it, but Jim got hit
Yeah.
in the glasses with an egg.
Yeah, it was a big thing for people Jimmy and I's age back in the 80s and the 90s. That's where you'd go to the midnight showing of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And it was an event, right? And you just go to this movie and you get just a fun thing. And at one point they hold up their cups and they go toast. And that's where people bring toast and throw it in the movie theater. And someone actually brought eggs and hit little Jimmy in the glasses. And so he had dripping egg off of his glasses. But one of my favorite stories about little Jimmy in the movie theater was when he was watching Revenge of the Nerds and little Jimmy thought he was really cool. And he was yelling at the screen and talking back to the screen. And his buddy goes, "Shut up, Jim." And Jim now thinks that's one of the funniest things in the world. So yeah, "Shut up, Jim" was a good little Jimmy angle.
That's one of my favorite stories. I'm glad it came up again. Okay, this one I'm pretty sure it's a new Little Jimmy story. I can't believe so many decades of radio, we're still getting new Little Jimmy stories. Like I could listen to these all week. This one, he had a buddy when he was maybe a fresh teenager or maybe even like 12. And the kid would get pot, the kid's dad smoked pot, or Jim even knew he sold it.
No, he's no, he is his dad, his Jimmy's friend and his Jimmy's friend's dad.
Yeah.
They smoke pot together, right? And he would let his son smoke pot with
Yeah.
him. So I guess when Jimmy wanted to score some pot before he was sober, he called up the dad and asked him if he could buy some from him. And what was the dad's reaction?
I believe he
He
yelled and said, "What the hell are you doing? Don't you ever call me again," or something.
Exactly. Because can you were both dads? Like, can you imagine if you let your child do something with you and then their buddy goes, "Hey man, can I get shut up? Get out of here."
We're gonna,
No.
yeah, I guess, but we're also like we're gonna get to the all the sexual stuff in Jim's upbringing,
Yeah.
but he's also just had adults like yell at him too, like that woman at the
The
pool.
lady in the
When
pool.
he said
Yeah.
your hair's called him a little effing pig, and he was like, was he like 8? He was like 8 or 9 or
Yeah. Yeah.
like just
You know what? And I
all
and I
yelling
gotta
at little
tell you,
Jimmy.
Scott, I start thinking about this too, and the era that we grew up in,
Yeah,
we were with adults a lot more as kids
yeah,
without our parents around. And we would get into a lot of more trouble and messing around. And adults would always yell at you, or it didn't happen to
yeah.
me, but adults who didn't know you might hit you, like get the fuck, hit you and stuff. So because it was just a different era, and we just
Right. No,
were
it's true.
on
It's
our
true.
own a little bit more. So
It's
maybe
true.
that's why Jimmy got yelled at a lot.
I think
But
it's part of it. It's so funny to hear now. He had his strange friend Dean. Well, I don't know if we're gonna be too specific about these stories, but Dean may have put something on Jim's glasses. That story we've heard before. This one
yeah.
we heard before.
Well, let me just a little bit
Yeah, go
more on
ahead.
Dean. I guess Jimmy's talked about, if you can ever find Dean, just go to the park because he might
Right,
be on the swings at midnight. Now,
right, right.
of course, Jim always brings it up that Dean has passed away
Yes.
of AIDS from drug use. He always clarifies that AIDS from drug use. So it's kind of a sad story, but yeah, I think Dean was probably Jimmy's best friend growing up.
Yeah, he's one of there's like a group, and that's definitely one of them. And then when Jim was young, also he went to a barber, and this opened up very interesting take from Sam. The barber would talk about like porn with Jim, and Jim was he 12 around there?
I think he might have said 16
Okay,
because he
so
was having
still
this
kind of
calic
weird.
problem. Remember, he had the calic problem where
Yeah,
the
then
guy had to
maybe I
cut
think I remember
around
him
it.
saying 15 then if he was around age. And
Okay.
it's strange, so strange for an adult, even back then, to be talking about this kind of stuff with a kid. And then
Yeah, right.
Sam points out that everyone around Jim was just kind of creepy in a sexual way. So like all of Jim's like, I guess if you want to call them perversions, they're not his like he had all these strange adults. He had the Devil in the Lake guy. He had Dean, his old friend Dean. I mean, you just got all these sexual people, all the the kids that bullied him, all this sexual. You're not going to meet anyone who had all this much like crazy sexual kind of energy around them. I think it's a great point by Sam.
Yeah, and it's like I talked about. It's just you're around adults more, so all their weird stuff kind of got on you a little bit more without the layer of protection of your folks being around more. So
Yes.
yeah, it was a weird time to grow up. I'm glad I'm okay. I hope I'm okay.
With all this little Jimmy talk, they did pull up Jim's senior picture again, which I hadn't seen in a while. I was delighted to see it. How would you describe that picture, Chris?
You know, I when I heard it on the radio and I saw it later on, it wasn't as bad as I thought. He was very serious, though, completely serious, and all those hairstyles made me just remember all those eras of hairstyles. And I got to tell you, I was trying to look for my yearbook right before we started taping here because I wanted to share my goofy yearbook picture of senior year. But yeah, I didn't think it too bad. But Sam had an interesting take. What does Sam think he looked like?
A handsome serial killer.
A handsome serial killer. And when you look at it, you see it because Jim was pleasantly surprised that he wasn't as ugly as he might have thought he was. And yeah, I guess I wasn't as bad as I thought I was. And yeah, Sam said, yeah, you look like maybe a handsome serial killer because he did look weird. He looked, like upset,
Yes.
tormented.
Could have had his own Netflix series, A Handsome Serial
But
Killer.
what a great little series of Jimmy things this week, man. I could listen to those all day long of that just weird thing because not only are they hilarious, but I identify with the 70s and 80s, that just crazy time of growing up then. So yeah, good on them.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Great little Jimmy stuff. And then there was, getting into some of the kind of the sad nature of the Jimmy stuff. We kind of, heard about how you laugh through tears with especially one comic on the New York scene who I've been lucky enough to interview and meet, who is an absolute legend that I grew up watching on Tough Crowd and Insomniac, is David Tell. And they've told this story before. Do you want to tell one of the
No,
best
you tell it, man, because I got a little story to share after that.
Okay. All right. So they told the story, or Jim did again, about how I think it was Manny died. I believe who passed Jim at the original guy to pass Jim at the Comedy Cellar. I think.
Yeah. I think Manny was one of
Yeah,
the.
Noam Jorman's dad, I believe, was Manny.
Yes, exactly. You're exactly right.
And they a lot of comics loved him, and he was after he passed away, everyone was obviously. Oh no, I'm sorry. No, I'm not.
Yeah, no,
that's a different story.
You're absolutely right, though. They did talk about Manny.
They told one
dying
of those
and how they joked and everything.
Yeah.
But the main joke.
The main joke was for Patrice O'Neill. And Patrice died. We know how close he was with Jim and all the comics. And that's how he was just, it's not just this one. He was making a bunch of jokes to crack everyone up. No one else could kind of joke about this. Everyone was so taken aback by the situation. But the best joke that Jim remembers was Dave saying, "We got to get a purple suit and a giant coffin."
A giant coffin and a purple suit. Yeah, it was hilarious. And you need that, and you need that to make you laugh in the tough times. And so I'll be as quick as I can with this story. So I moved from Denver to Chicago in 97, and my dad passed away like the first month I lived here, right? So I made the plan. I was in temporary housing, and I made the plan to fly home, and my brother and I are going to pack up my belongings and put it all in a truck and bring it out to my new apartment. And the day that I flew in, it was the day that my dad died. So it was just one of these horrible things. And so we still loaded up the van and packed everything away, in the truck and made sure we had all that. Now, prior to this, I was good friends with a lot of people there, obviously growing up in Colorado. And we played this treasure hunt game, and the winner received this large painting, this just massive canvas painting. Literally, Scott, it was 6 feet by 8 feet. It was huge. Well, I didn't want this thing when I won it, and this is a couple months before I moved away. So I'm like, yeah, I'll pick it up. I'll pick it up. So cut to being ready to drive out after we buried my dad. And I get halfway down my trip, like in Iowa somewhere, and I go to check on stuff in the truck. Something was settling. And that painting, that huge canvas, was in with all my belongings that I had to take to Chicago because my friends asked my brother for the key to the truck so they could put it in there so I'd have a laugh when I got halfway to my trip coming to Chicago. So I had this incredibly large painting that I had no idea what I was going to do with. So I hung it up in my apartment, and it was a joke painting. It was horrible, but that's where it lived for a while. So yeah, laughing through your tears. You bury your father, but halfway through your grief, you're going to get a treat from your friends.
You have an enormous painting you got to hang up. That's funny.
Yeah,
Um,
it's crazy.
Speaking of funny, again, really enjoyed this week's Nikki and Jim video. I mean, their YouTube page, their web series, whatever you want to call it, is fantastic. I still think it should be a reality show on like an HBO Max or Max, whatever they call it. They should have HBO in the name, as the guy said. They do not.
Yeah,
Quick hits. A couple of things to touch on. New Kiss poster. Nikki approved. Do you remember what's
what? Yeah,
from?
that's the thing. It's like I just couldn't believe when he said that.
It must
Yeah,
be some poster
I guess it's some English poster, right? It's from the movie.
from Kiss's movie. I think the release in England.
Got it.
So I think that's
And I
what.
guess it's in really good shape, and she actually liked it. So that was kind of weird. And just backtracking a little bit to the Cleveland video, which I thoroughly enjoyed them talking about and showing everything there. But man, it was it was really funny because they started talking about, having actors play them in reenactments. Like, because Jim was like, hey, man, I started shooting it. I was really fat, so we couldn't go back and shoot anything because I lost weight. So he's like, we should have had actors and then Sam's great idea is like, oh, definitely, you should get actor portrayal of this kind of stuff. And like, Jim's like, yeah, I could hire a male model and a short, like a nice male model and a short, fat, blonde woman to play Nikki and I. And like, yeah, Jim was like, but which one is going to play which? Because someone's really short and one's a male model. So anyway, it was really good. But yeah, I loved that part of it. Do you remember when they were talking about that and how funny that was?
Yes, that was a great idea by Jim, and I wouldn't be surprised if Jim does have just hire some ridiculous actors to do the reenactments. I absolutely.
He said he's going to do it now. He said he's going to do
I bet he
reenactments with that.
does.
But that video was great, really funny, and in core Jimmy fashion, he has his sweat pulled up over his belly and just looking at Nikki across from the way. It's a great video, so check that out. But yes, back to quick hits. The poster was a surprise. And then another thing that sounded cool as a surprise is that Nikki might go on Cameo, right? And
Yes.
that would be the perfect place for her. Can you imagine having all these fans that love Jim and Sam and now love her, being able to go and have her wish them a very happy whatever? She would love it.
She's gonna do some cameos.
Yeah.
She already has, I just pulled it up. She already has almost 14,000 followers on Instagram. That's a lot,
That's
especially
amazing.
this
Yeah.
quick, just a few months, right? That we've known Nikki, that she was introduced to Jim and Sam's audience. So she's catching on. She's catching on like gangbusters. And
Yeah, it's great. I think it's
it does.
wonderful. And I think it's really cool that people really have just, whoever Jimmy marries is going to have a kind of a tough, road ahead from fans liking her and stuff, but she won everybody over very quickly. I
Okay.
wish Jim would do the following thing. Please, will you, if you have any contact with Jim, make sure that he releases a certain video. What
Oh
video
my
is
God.
that?
Well, first, I was just going to say that also to go with that kind of backs up Nikki's rise to fame. Their YouTube channel already has over 13,000 subscribers, so they're doing great. She'll do a bunch of cameos, and while Jim is having all this content put out very wisely, it's going very well and it's very funny. And Soraya is doing work for him, tremendous work when you look at the edits and all the footage. We got to see the Edgar VR video. I mean, not only we know Jim can't play video games from all the Grand Theft Autos that were brought in to the studio especially during the O&A days. But I mean, Edgar, we got a lot of Doug Bell this week actually, and a little
Yeah,
cowbell. But
sure.
Edgar's a great character, and I guess Jim says the whole time he's just like in VR looking for Eugene, going
Trying to
Eugene.
fly around Eugene, flying around Eugene. And Jim said he wouldn't release it because he's really fat in the video. That's
Of
why he hasn't released it for all this
course,
time. But now that he's skinnier, he'll release it.
yeah.
But I mean, he's still fat in the video. So what does that matter? If you're fat, release it. If you're skinny, release it. We just love you anyway. So don't worry about it.
Yes, yes. And he is trying to cut back on some of the behavior that makes you fat, such as not just eating a bunch of Cheez-Its, but perhaps licking and sniffing them. Like,
What the hell is that about? So, he's not going to partake in a lot of that stuff. He goes, hey guys, like this is really, he really said it like this. Hey guys, You ever lick them and then sniff them before you eat them? Sam's like, what?
Right away,
Yeah,
Sam goes, no, no one does that. Sam,
no.
it was a half-second response time. Sam is so good at that. And
Yeah, he is
Sam,
like,
just
no,
like
no
with
one
Troy,
does that.
just like with Troy, they say something very matter of fact, like the average person does it, and literally almost no one does some of the, and that's why we love them. And Sam is right there to point that out. It was so
Yeah,
funny. That was my favorite part
it,
of the week.
it it was one of my favorite parts as well too.
You're a big music guy, as we know. There really had the guys talked about this. Really have been some great musical appearances on a lot of late night shows, talk shows. So they named a bunch, and it was somewhere where I wasn't listening live, like working or something. I was like, oh, it's one of those times where like you want to call in because Jewel got famous from Conan. They talked about Conan had Slipknot and a lot of other memorable performances, and as did Letterman. But Jewel literally got famous because of Conan back then. I remember that.
Yeah, and one of my favorite, of course, we've all talked about how much I like Rush. Rush did one of the first appearances they've done on a talk show, and it was Colbert. So they were on with
Oh,
Colbert and joked around with him, and I just read Getty's book, and he talked about how they're apprehensive about doing it, but it put at ease and loved it. And then since they played Letterman and that kind of stuff, so yeah, these bands are huge, and it either really makes you or surprises you, to see your bands on these shows. But I think one of the best performances on one of these shows, it's got to be Feldman, right? Got to
oh
be
my
Feldman.
God, Corey
Tell the
and
story.
Angels. Well, that was just they were on the Today Show, right? And they have, and I still have it. I watch it. They have a concert series, and they have a big sponsor for it. And they're really good bands, and they do the outdoor show where people, tourists, and people just walk up and watch it. And
Yeah,
everyone other act was very good, had very good sets, and
on the
Corey
Plaza, I think they call
on
it the
the
Plaza.
plaza, yeah, in New York, and
Yeah,
Corey.
it was it was just brutal. And then the funniest thing, and I haven't seen this, and I hope I get a chance to, and I'm going to kind of reenact it now, is that he goes to sing and he hits his teeth on the mic.
Oh
Did
yes,
you hear about
amazing,
that one? And you can
amazing.
hear him go, on the mic, and it was hilarious. And I got to go watch that because everybody in the studio was laughing when they watched that video. So Corey has some challenges.
Yes, he does. He certainly does. A man who does not have challenges because not only is Matt Iceman the man, he has Arnold Schwarzenegger as a friend. Arnold was there to kind of help with his wedding, I guess.
Yeah, I'd never
Recently.
heard that story. Do you know much about that?
No, I saw a clip, but I didn't. Matt's awesome. He did an interview for one of the Forbes stories I did. I love him on the show.
Yeah,
But no, I didn't get to see what that was all about, but I want to because I love Matt
yeah,
and
for sure.
obviously. And but no, Jim had a very funny take on this kind of talk about Matt Iceman, and he was on, he's friends with Arnold because The Apprentice. He's on all
Yeah,
these
he's on a
shows.
ton of those shows. He does
Yeah.
the doesn't he do the one where they American Gladiator, not Gladiator, whatever, where they American Gladiator, that's how old I am, where they climb up the stuff, oh God, what is the name of that? American Ninja Challenge. Didn't Matt do some of that on there?
American Ninja Warrior. Yes, he does do it.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I thought so. So yeah, Matt was great. And one thing I didn't know about this, he loves Daniel Bobo Curlin, right?
Yes. Yes,
He's
he
a
does.
big,
He's a
big
Bobo
fan.
fan. And so that led
It's
to that led to Jim saying that this show can only hurt Matt. He's such a legend in show business already. Speaking of legends, Jim is a huge fan of the man who made single-handedly. I feel like there's a story similar. There was a person that crapped on the plane. Like we
yeah,
just
that
planned a trip
happened.
for the spring. Like I hope nothing happens. But some guy was farting
Yeah.
so loud and so putridly that they turned an American Airlines flight around. And I just can't believe
Yeah,
it.
thank God they were on the tarmac still, so but they already pushed away from the gate and they're out getting ready to take off. So in the time that the guy boarded between then and the time that they're ready to take off, he was lighting them up and was commenting on how bad they were. And so much so that they turned around and they never got the payoff for the story that did they take the guy off the plane? What happened? But Jim was a big fan and proud of this man for doing it well.
As he should be. Mark and Norman had a very interesting video they broke down Thursday morning, and so I guess it's probably posted Wednesday night. But is Mark in a club, and it's what's it?
The New York
New York
Comedy Club, right? But it was a special event at the New York Comedy Club. I don't think it
Yes,
was one of their normal things, right?
it was labeled like surprise headliner series or something is what they called it. And you never really hear about the comics that come on the show or have come on O&A talk about the New York Comedy Club. So I don't know if that's more like a little more beginner, or I don't know. Maybe
Yeah, I don't
everyone,
know much about it. Yeah.
but you don't hear about it a lot. So I was already like, hmm. And then they showed a video, and a guy just comes on stage. It's super weird. Mark's kind of, making jokes, maybe seems a little uncomfortable. Security pulls the guy off stage. And then two producers go on stage and say, like, oh, everyone, they put this first, sorry, security pulls Mark off stage. And
Yeah,
then
that was a weird thing there too.
that was weird. And producers are like, oh, sorry, we had a situation. Mark's not going to come back. And then a person stood up is like, well, are we free to leave? So Jim said, I think this is fake. And no one else really, I don't think they really studied the video. No one else agreed with Jim. I watched a couple times and I was certain Jim was right. And then
Really?
later on in the day, on Thursday, somebody posts that, oh yeah, no, sorry about the disturbance in New York Comic Club. We were filming something. Um, you know, as part of the show.
No, I'm going to disagree with my partner here on this one.
Okay.
I think that the filming something was that they're filming parts of Mark doing his performance. The producers for the taping for Mark reference what they're filming. So I think this was maybe something that might have happened. Maybe something happened like this. It was weird because they ushered the people out like, okay, you guys got to get out of here. It was uncomfortable. And Sam made a good point, or Jim made the point of what does Mark or the club or any of those people have to gain from this? Now, I guess we're talking about it, but Mark's blowing up. So I don't know if he needs that much help in that way. And they also made a good point. We both have worked as producers, right? And I know you're looking it up right now to see exactly what was said. We both have worked as producers of television and other things. And the producer comes out and says, "Okay, yeah, can you guys, you need to leave," or something like that, really awkwardly. And that's where it's like, this seems odd. And Travis made a good point. It's like, well, hey, if something like that happened with us, I wouldn't know the right vernacular or how to handle a situation like this. So I would come out awkward, say something weird too, probably. So yeah, it was weird. I believe that something weird happened. Either it could have been a bomb threat, could have been like, I'm going to release anthrax or something like that, where they have to kind of do something to make sure everybody's safe, because if something really happens and they don't do anything, then they're liable. But yeah, it was a weird thing, and I hope we get a lot more. We'll get some more from Mark, but maybe we'll get some from his team. And that was my favorite part, that Jim was giving him a hard time. Yeah,
yes,
go ahead.
Mark's team. That was very funny. I hope he gives him credit for that. The Comedy Club put out a tweet, and it said that in the tweet says, first and foremost, nobody was harmed or injured. The disruption was part of a filming. That makes me think that it was
part of a filming. So maybe
but also watch the video again. The producers are very cadenced when they talk, very acty. And then a woman stands up and she's the audience representative. Can we leave? Also very acty. Those are all lines.
So I will completely admit I never watched the video. I just listened to it with everybody else on there.
It's very
so
fake. Very fake.
Maybe I'm gullible.
Mark, though, if he didn't know what was going on, Mark is a great actor. He was just himself.
So maybe that's what it was. Maybe Mark wasn't in on the thing. Maybe it was kind of like this, what was it?
Surprise
the dance? Yeah, well, when the people would go dance, flash mobs, right? Where something would start happening. Like so maybe it was kind of like some art thing that someone else was doing, that they're filming it. They're already setting up Mark and they're filming Mark's set, but then they're behind the scenes, kind of like Impractical Jokers. They're filming for this interruption, exactly like Impractical Jokers. So can you imagine if Mark was just one of the regular performers, and this guy is one of the jokers trying to go jump on stage and doing that was his punishment. He had to jump on stage and interrupt a comic, or something like that. Maybe that was kind of what it was. Who knows? Maybe. You have a good point there, and I'll have to watch it again. So I apologize for calling your bluff, but that's why we hear discussing things. We're not always going to agree.
I was like, these are actors, but Mark could have been a Mark. He could have been a Mark.
Could have been a mark. Mark.
So we will see. Interesting nonetheless. I hope he was a mark, because if Mark Norman doesn't need, he's too big to be part of some prank show or like.
Well, he was going to have our friend and favorite what's her name go and perform on his opener. What's her name? Come on, help me out. The cowgirl, naked cowgirl.
Oh, got Sandy Kane.
Sandy Kane. He was going to have Sandy Kane there. So, Mark has some weird thoughts in there, but what we'll do, and I love, finally we can get some participation on this thing. We'll put that out as our poll. Was it a work or was it real? Mark's performance and what happened there.
Let us know.
Let us know. Study it. Do the Zapruder film breakdown of it, please.
So, yeah, I guess we already talked about the stalkers. We don't have to hit that too much, except Jim had a personal experience with a stalker. And this is another Jim story I don't think I ever heard. And he was like kind of like touching on it. I don't know if he was going to go into it, so maybe he hasn't talked about it before, but apparently, and I think he said it was a woman, just kept calling him like all day for some span of time, all day. He said 4 minutes, because that's all, like, I guess then you could record on a voicemail.
Wow.
Kept leaving him voicemails. And he said the whole thing, like, he didn't feel like a victim or like in danger. He was just pissed. Like, he really
like leave me alone. I don't, yeah,
totally.
I'm not scared of you. Just
you know how he gets, like, totally pissed off about the situation.
Absolutely.
Getting to best guests, just two guests, talked a lot about Mr. Fidance. And real quick, Chris, do you recall anything from Mr. Dez Bishop on Thursday?
Yeah, he was interesting. I don't think I've heard him on before myself. I'm sure he probably has been, but yeah, I was listening to that, and I guess he's married to, is it Hannah Berner, who is kind of like a TV personality. She's been on that what is it? The show, I'm the worst. Something House. Anyway, it's like a reality show. She's been on it for a little while. I have it in my notes, so I'm going to go to my notes just so I'm clear. Summer House.
That she was on
Summer House.
Watch What Happens. What was she on?
She was on a show called Summer House.
Oh, Summer House. Okay, and I also saw she was on that, like, Watch What Happens Live or with Brian.
Yeah, she does a lot. Really, really attractive girl, and I guess they were walking the red carpet recently, and Sam was pointing out on the photos that Dez looked really good, and he goes, "Yeah, I had somebody teach me how to take photos and stuff and put your hands in your pocket." And Jim took that really weird, like, you're supposed to put your hands in your pocket when you're walking the red carpet, and going into that. And so, because I have experience and I've been taught in my former life as a model, I'm going to demonstrate for you. You didn't know this coming. How you're supposed to put your hand in your pocket. So I'm going to back up here a little bit. Excuse the pants. All right. So let me get to a spot where you can see my pocket. Is that okay? Can you hear me all right?
I can see your pocket. It's front and center.
There you go.
Front and center.
Right there. Boom, boom. Right there. So you're supposed to make a cup with your hand instead of doing it flat, jamming your pant. Cup your hand. So you're cupping your leg and keep your one thumb out.
Thumbs out.
It's a nice line. Yep, thumb out, and you're cupping. I'm not like this, with my hand. You can see it in there. Cup my leg so it keeps a nice line on there. And there you go. You're taking a nice picture with your hand in your pocket.
I like it.
What do you think, buddy?
Yeah, it's good. It doesn't go too deep. You don't want to be accused of playing a little pocket pool there.
No, you can't go in. You can't go in too far there, and you're going to get into trouble. But yeah, things I learned when I was 17 as a model really has carried me on today when I walk the red carpet, which rarely happens.
It does happen.
Times.
It does happen, and you're prepared when it does. I thought Dez Bishop was good. He's a name, because I did stand up for a little bit. He was a name you always kind of heard, and like it sounded like people really respected him. So I don't remember hearing him on O&A or Jim and Sam before, but I thought it was a pretty good appearance on Thursday here. So we had Ian and Dez. Chris, do you have a best guest?
I can't believe I'm saying this, but you got to give it to Ian. He came with the right kind of, let's say, emotion and feel, and he did well. I liked Dez a lot, but if Ian's trying and he knows that people don't care for him as much, I was happy with his performance. So I give it to Ian.
I agree. Sorry to yawn. We have a toddler who's no longer in a crib. So it's been a tough week. I don't mean to yawn during our great show that I enjoy.
But Daddy, I don't want to. Oh no, that's a 17-year-old child in Jim's mind, not a toddler.
That's like 21-year-old say, but dada.
Exactly. But dada.
No, yeah, I agree. Ian was, as I said, very good Ian appearance. Nice and interesting and funny, but super late. And Jim, I remember pointing out that he was late. I think Ian said he was tired, and Jim's like, "How are you possibly tired?" Because he came so late in the morning.
Yeah, exactly.
it's a very good week because the guys were so funny and had a lot of good in studio chatter. Good week for line of the week. I imagine you would have some finalists in a week like this.
It was a lot, and I do have finalists, but one blew it out of the park, and the one that blew it out of the park didn't get a big laugh. So stay tuned for that. But I'm going to read my other one here first. They're talking about some donuts that Bob Kelly brought into the cellar, and Jim took a picture of them, and then of course Jim took credit for it in his Instagram, saying, hey, I brought these donuts in from Donut Pub for everybody here at cellar. Well, Bob Kelly did. And Sam referenced, we should get some donuts, like, Krispy Kreme. The sign says the red light's on and it's time to get glazed or something like that. And Jim goes, well, that's not what I think when I see a red light. And Sam goes, yeah, that's not what you think when you hear glazed either. Loved that. That was really good and quick. But my favorite, awesome. And it's unbelievable, and it didn't get a laugh. Got a little tiny laugh, I think, from Sam, but I don't think everybody heard it.
I think
they're talking about really
hard at that one, actually. I remember because
go ahead. Okay, but this one didn't get any. The one I'm going to tell you about didn't get a laugh, except for maybe a chuckle from Sam. They were talking about the UFC fight winner. I guess they announced it, and they weren't sure which name he announced, so they weren't sure who won. So he had to go on the mic and say, "Yeah, no, actually, this person won." So it was kind of this whole weird thing. And Jim gets kind of frantic when he wants to hear it again because he wants to make sure that he heard it right. And he was talking to Montone about it. He says, Montone, go find that information. Find it if you could for me. And Montone started working on it. And then he said, no, Travis, you find it. And Sam goes, Travis, why aren't you looking? He goes, well, you asked Montone first. I'm not going to. He asked Montone first if Jim wants me to look for it. And okay. And so Travis, you look. So Travis started looking and he got stuck and couldn't find it. So Sam goes, let's go back to Montone and see if he's found anything there. Montone, do you find anything? And Montone goes, yeah, terms of service.
That was great.
No one laughed except for Sam giggled. So it was perfect. Montone came with the thunder and I loved it. Do you have a line of the week, my brother?
I think it was a moment where people were doing stuff in the studio and not everyone caught it because that was great. So I was also partial. I did email myself the glaze joke, but I'm just going to give the other one that was kind of neck and neck with this other one. So my line of the week comes from Mr. And so both would have been Samuel Wood Roberts, but this one for sure. Line of the week, when they're talking about Rocky Horror Picture Show, and Sam mentioned Frankenfooter instead, and Jim corrected him. No, it's Frankenfurter. Frankenfooter. Jim said, "What's that? A trans hot dog?" And Sam goes, "No, that's who I travel with."
That's right. That was perfect.
And again, Sam's timing now. Sam's timing now is lightning fast. He's Jim. He's Voss. Okay,
just before we let everybody, tap out of this thing we call the town square. Maybe I should end like that. I want to just say, do you think Sam did he always have that trick in his bag, or do you think that has been honed over the years of sitting in the studio watching these great comedians, learning this timing thing? Can timing and comedic talent be something that you gain over time, or are you born with that talent? What do you think?
You can be born with it, but you can definitely sharpen it. So I think Sam had to be funny or have at least a really good sense of humor to emerge the way he has from the O&A world and just fit in the O&A world to begin with. So he had to have a little bit there. But if you go back and listen, he's definitely faster because he's seen the fastest, and he's got not just watching, it's reps too. He's always making jokes. He's always filling time on radio, and he's funny. So yeah, great question. I think it's both. I think it's both.
Very good. All right, man. What else we got?
I think that's just about it. I think
we did it.
Go ahead and we did it. We're full Zoom guys now. We can go a little longer when we want.
Maybe we shouldn't go as long because I feel like we
just kind of lose our way at the end.
Yeah, we're a little tuckered out on this one, so we apologize. Not all of them are going to be home runs, right? We do the best we can for you guys, right?
Yes, and sometimes you just run into home a little slow. That's all. Sometimes you get the home run, but yeah, thank you guys for watching and listening. Thank you, Chris, for everything you're doing.
Absolutely. I appreciate you. You bought this shirt for me. I'm glad to have it. I'm glad that we are able to share Edna for as long as we have the Edna cold coffee in our brain. And, we're not sure if she's passed away, But if we can find her, we're going to drag her to the town square. You believe it.
Thanks for watching and listening to the Jim and Sam Town Square. Please remember to like and subscribe and turn on that notification bell, not dog bell, so you don't miss an episode.
And if you're just listening to the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate it.